The cargo manifest listed it as scientific equipment. That was the first lie. The second lie was that the container had proper environmental controls. By the time anyone noticed the discrepancies, 3 smugglers were already dead, and Orbital Station 47 had bigger problems than paperwork. Brent Wilson sat in the observation deck, reviewing quarterly supply reports when the alarm started. Not the gentle chimes that announced shift changes or the periodic beeps of routine maintenance. These were the screaming, building-wide sirens that meant something had gone catastrophically wrong. His datapad flickered and died, replaced by emergency protocol screens. Red text scrolled across every display in sight. Containment breach. Cargo Bay Delta. Class 5 biological hazard. All personnel evacuate to designated safe zones immediately. Brent ran. The corridors filled with bodies within seconds. 17 different species all trying to squeeze through passages designed for orderly traffic. A Taurian merchant knocked over a display of imported fabrics in his haste. 2 Hellion engineers abandoned their tool carts and sprinted for the nearest shelter point. The crowd moved like a living thing, driven by pure survival instinct. Someone screamed behind him. Brent glanced back and saw the security feeds projected on a public terminal. The image showed Cargo Bay Delta, or what remained of it. Shipping containers lay scattered like toys. 3 bodies sprawled across the deck plating, torn apart with surgical precision. And in the center of the carnage stood something that should not exist outside nightmares. The Voidclaw was 15 feet of armored death. Its scales shimmered with bioelectric charges that arced between the metal walls. 6 legs ending in retractable claws that could slice through starship hulls. A head full of teeth designed to crush bone and tear flesh. Electromagnetic whiskers twitched as it sensed the panic spreading through the station. Brent recognized it immediately. Everyone in galactic space knew what Voidclaws looked like. They were the reason entire sectors maintained permanent military blockades. The species that ended 7 colonies before the hegemony decided some planets were better left alone. The blast doors began slamming shut across the station. Heavy plates of reinforced metal dropped from ceiling housings with deep, resonant booms. Sections sealed off one by one as the emergency AI worked to contain the threat. Brent made it through a door with seconds to spare, feeling the rush of air as it locked behind him. Commander Tyrell's voice echoed through the intercom system. His normally calm tone had developed an edge. All personnel were to remain in shelter zones until further notice. Security teams were responding. Do not attempt to engage the hostile. Do not attempt to flee your designated area. Reinforcements were being contacted. Brent found himself pressed into a shelter zone with 40 other people. A cargo handler was crying quietly in the corner. 2 Kelvin merchants argued about whose fault this was. A family of Draxi huddled together, their children making scared chirping sounds. The security feeds continued broadcasting on wall monitors. Everyone watched in horrified silence as the Voidclaw moved through the station. It didn't hunt so much as explore, testing doors with those massive claws, investigating corridors with its electromagnetic senses. Military drones attempted to engage and were destroyed in seconds. The creature moved with disturbing speed for something so large. Then it reached the central plaza. Hundreds of civilians had taken shelter there, sealing themselves behind transparent aluminum barriers. The Voidclaw circled them like a shark, scales crackling with energy. Each time it struck a barrier, people screamed and pushed backward. The creature's confusion seemed to grow with each failed attempt to understand its environment. Brent recognized the behavior pattern even if he didn't fully understand it. This wasn't hunting. This was something else, something wrong. Security Chief Harland appeared on the command channel, coordinating drone strikes and containment teams. Nothing worked. The Voidclaw shrugged off everything they threw at it. Commander Tyrell argued with Galactic Council representatives who demanded lethal force. The problem was that weapons powerful enough to kill a Voidclaw would also breach the station hull and kill everyone aboard. That was when Ryan Foster appeared on the security feeds. He crawled through a maintenance shaft that led directly to the plaza's upper level. His movements were calm and deliberate, completely at odds with the chaos everywhere else. Brent watched in disbelief as he emerged onto an observation platform 30 feet above the trapped civilians. Security Chief Harlan spotted him immediately. His voice crackled through every speaker. What was he doing? Get out of there, evacuate immediately. This was a direct order. Ryan ignored him completely. He stood on the platform, studying the Void Claw through some kind of analysis visor. His equipment bag hung from one shoulder. He showed no signs of fear, no indication that he understood the danger. Or perhaps he understood it better than anyone else. The Void Claw continued circling below, growing more agitated with each passing moment. Its bioelectric discharges increased in frequency. The creature was reaching a breaking point, and when that happened, the barriers would fail and hundreds would die. Ryan activated something on his equipment belt. A sound emerged that Brent felt more than heard, a deep resonance that seemed to bypass his ears entirely. The Void Claw froze mid-stride. The shelter zone fell silent except for breathing and the distant hum of station systems, every eye fixed on the monitors. Ryan began descending the stairs to the plaza floor, still making those strange sounds. The galaxy's most feared predator turned to face him fully. Brent realized he was holding his breath. Around him, 40 people watched a human man walk calmly towards certain death. He reached the bottom of the stairs and continued forward without hesitation. The Void Claw took its first step toward him, bioelectric arcs dancing across its scales like living lightning. Ryan Foster had grown up surrounded by things that wanted to kill him, not metaphorically, literally. His childhood home sat on the edge of a wildlife reserve in Montana, where grizzly bears wandered through the backyard and mountain lions screamed in the night. His parents ran a rehabilitation center for aggressive predators, the ones other facilities had given up on. The animals, everyone said, were too dangerous to save. He learned early that fear made creatures more dangerous than their nature ever could. The sounds he was making came from recordings he had studied for months. Void Claw maternal vocalizations, captured by remote sensors on their blockaded homeworld. Frequencies that most species couldn't properly reproduce because they lacked the right vocal structure. Humans could manage it if they tried hard enough. The Void Claw stopped circling and focused entirely on him. Its electromagnetic whiskers extended, scanning him from 30 feet away. Ryan felt the static charge raising the hair on. His arms, his heart rate stayed steady. This was the critical moment. Show fear now and everything would collapse. He continued the sounds while slowly lowering himself into a crouch, non-threatening posture, submissive but not vulnerable. The same techniques he used with aggressive dogs and territorial cats, adapted for something infinitely more dangerous. In the command center, Commander Tyrell watched with his hand hovering over the authorization panel. One word from him and security teams would breach the plaza with lethal weapons. The Galactic Council representatives were screaming for exactly that. Kill it now before it kills her. Eliminate the threat. Tyrell held them back by seconds. The Void Claw took another step forward, then another. Its scales shimmered with bioelectric charges that arced to nearby metal surfaces, 20 feet away now, close enough that Amy could see the details other people only knew from horror stories. The retractable claws that extended and retracted with each step. The teeth designed to crush through bone. The eyes that saw in spectrums no human could imagine. She noticed something else too. The creature was young, not fully grown. Its proportions were slightly off, the awkwardness of adolescence visible in how it moved. This was not an adult apex predator. This was a juvenile torn from its mother and dumped into a nightmare. Ryan adjusted his approach based on that realization. He changed the vocalizations slightly, adding distress calls mixed with comfort sounds, the same way a human might soothe a lost child. Come here, you are safe. I will not hurt you. 15 feet. Security Chief Harland was arguing loudly over the command channel. This was insane. Humans were supposed to be the reasonable ones, not the crazy ones, since when did reasonable mean walking towards certain death? Ryan extended his hand slowly, palm up, fingers relaxed. His analysis visor fed him data that xenobiologists had compiled about void-claw pack bonding. He mimicked the postures they used with each other, the slight tilt of the head, the deliberate blink pattern that signaled trust. 10 feet. The Void-Claw's aggressive stance began to soften. Its scales still crackled with energy, but the charges were less frequent. The electromagnetic whiskers continued scanning her, processing information through senses humans barely understood. Whatever it detected seemed to confuse it. 5 feet. Ryan could feel the heat radiating from its body now. The bioelectric field made his skin tingle. He continued speaking in low, calm tones, mixing earth-animal handling techniques with the Void-Claw vocalizations, talking to it the way he would talk to any frightened creature. "You are confused. This place is wrong, but you are not in danger from me." The Void-Claw extended its massive head toward his outstretched hand. In the observation room, a Taurian ambassador whispered that what they were witnessing should be impossible. Void-Claws did not bond with other species. They barely bonded with each other outside mating pairs. This creature should have killed her already. The fact that it had not defied everything they knew about the species. Contact. The Void-Claw's snout touched Ryan's palm. Its scales were warm, almost hot to the touch. The bioelectric charge tingled against his skin but did not hurt. He held perfectly still, letting it investigate him. The electromagnetic whiskers brushed across his arm, his shoulder, his face, reading him the way humans might read a book. He began speaking again, softer now, just sounds, nothing with specific meaning. The tone mattered more than the words. His other hand moved slowly, carefully, to a spot behind its auditory ridge, a place he had noticed it trying to scratch earlier but could not quite reach. He applied gentle pressure and began scratching. The Void-Claw's eyes half closed. A sound emerged from deep in its chest, a low rumble that researchers had never recorded before. The aggressive posture melted away entirely. The bioelectric charges faded to occasional sparks. It leaned into his touch like a cat seeking affection. Ryan kept scratching while lowering himself to sit on the plaza floor. The Void-Claw followed him down, settling beside him with its massive head in his lap. He continued petting it, running his hands along its scales, finding all the spots that made that strange, rumbling sound grow louder. On the command center screens, 40 different camera angles showed the same impossible scene. A human man sitting calmly on the floor, petting the galaxy's most feared predator. The creature that ended civilizations now making content sounds while he scratched behind its ears. Commander Tyrell slowly moved his hand away from the authorization panel. Security Chief Harland stared at the monitors in stunned silence. The Galactic Council. Representatives stopped shouting. Ryan continued petting the Void-Claw until its breathing slowed and deepened. The rumbling softened. Within minutes, the creature had fallen asleep with its head still in his lap, trusting him completely. He activated his comm unit quietly. "Commander Tyrell, we need a containment solution, not a body bag. This juvenile needs help, not execution. Can you manage that?" The command channel stayed silent for a long moment before Tyrell responded. His voice carried a mixture of awe and disbelief. "We will figure something out. Just keep doing whatever you are doing." Ryan smiled and continued petting the sleeping predator while the entire station watched in amazement. 2 hours passed before anyone figured out what to do next. Ryan sat cross-legged on the plaza floor with a sleeping Void-Claw using his lap as a pillow. His legs had gone numb 40 minutes ago, but he did not dare move. The creature weighed close to 800 pounds, and sudden movement might wake it in a confused state. Better to endure the discomfort. Around him, the station slowly came back to life. The emergency lockdown remained active, but the immediate panic had faded. People pressed against the transparent barriers, watching the impossible scene. Children pointed while their parents held them back. A Kelvin merchant was recording everything on multiple devices, probably planning to sell the footage later. In the command center, Commander Tyrell had assembled every xenobiologist and engineer on the station. They filled the briefing room, arguing about containment options. Standard holding cells were designed for smaller creatures. The cargo bay was destroyed. Building a new enclosure would take weeks they did not have. Security Chief Harland wanted to keep it sedated until proper facilities arrived. A xenobiologist named Patricia argued that drugging it again would erase any trust Ryan had built. Another engineer suggested spacing it, just opening an airlock and solving the problem permanently. Ryan listened to all of this through his comm unit and resisted the urge to tell them exactly what he thought of that last suggestion. The footage had already spread beyond the station. Ships docked at the orbital platforms transmitted the recordings to their homeworlds. Within an hour, every major network across 17 species was showing the same clip. A human man calmly petting a voidclaw during an emergency lockdown. The views climbed into the billions. Galactic Council security forces arrived on a fast courier ship, demanding answers. A team of officials in formal uniforms marched into the command center and immediately started asking questions that nobody could answer properly. How did a human overcome millions of years of voidclaw predatory evolution? What technology was he using? Was this some kind of military experiment? Commander Tyrell tried to explain that Ryan was just a wildlife specialist who happened to understand animal behavior. The officials clearly did not believe him. They demanded full scans of his equipment, genetic testing, psychological evaluation. Humans could not simply pet voidclaws. There had to be some trick. Ryan finally got tired of listening to them. He activated his comm unit and spoke directly to the command center. There is no trick. It was a frightened juvenile in an unfamiliar environment. I treated it like any scared animal because that is what it is. Every species in this galaxy seems to have forgotten that predators are still just animals. One of the officials responded immediately. Voidclaws are not animals. They are extinction-level threats. They destroyed 7 colonies, killed thousands. You cannot domesticate a natural disaster. Ryan looked down at the sleeping creature in his lap, at the way its scales rose and fell with each breath. He thought about the grizzly bears he had rehabilitated as a teenager, the ones everyone said were beyond saving. The mountain lions that learned to trust him. The wolves that never quite lost their wild nature but understood he meant no harm. Earth is full of apex predators, he said quietly. Sharks, bears, big cats, crocodiles. Humans learned to live alongside them thousands of years ago. We did not do it by treating them as monsters. We did it by understanding them, respecting them, recognizing that they act according to their nature, not out of malice. The command center fell silent. He continued, "This juvenile was drugged by smugglers and torn from its mother. It woke up in a metal box surrounded by unfamiliar smells and sounds. Every attempt to contain it through force made it more scared and therefore more dangerous. Nobody tried to understand what it needed. You just saw teeth and claws and reacted with fear." A long pause followed. Then one of the officials spoke again, more carefully this time. "What do you suggest we do with it?" "Return it home," Ryan said immediately. "It belongs with its own kind. This creature is a juvenile that can be rehabilitated. You have a chance to do something right instead of adding another body to the count." Commander Tyrell pointed out the obvious problem. The hegemony maintains a blockade around the Voidclaw homeworld. They will not allow us to approach, let alone return a specimen. The military standing orders are to destroy any Voidclaw found in galactic space. "Then the standing orders are wrong," Ryan replied. He felt the Voidclaw stir slightly and resumed scratching behind its auditory ridge. The rumbling sound returned and it settled back into sleep. Brent Wilson had been watching everything from the observation deck. He made his way to the command center and offered a perspective that nobody else had considered. The whole galaxy just watched a human pet a Voidclaw like a dog. Every species sees humans differently now. Maybe that gives us leverage to challenge those standing orders. Patricia, the xenobiologist, agreed. The scientific community has wanted access to study void claws for decades. If there is any chance of understanding them, of potentially establishing peaceful contact, this is it. We cannot waste this opportunity. The debate continued for another hour. Ryan stopped listening and focused on the creature in his lap. He had named it Ripley after a character from old Earth fiction who also dealt with dangerous aliens. The name felt appropriate. Eventually, Commander Tyrrell made a decision. They would keep Ripley in a hastily constructed containment area while attempting to negotiate with the hegemony blockade. Ryan would remain as the primary handler. If the void claws proved hostile to return attempts, they would reassess. It was not perfect, but it was better than execution. As medical teams moved in with portable containment equipment, Ryan finally stood up. His legs screamed in protest and he nearly fell. Brent caught his arm and helped him stay upright. The void claw woke immediately, rising to its feet with scales crackling. Ryan put his hand on its snout and made those calming sounds again. The creature relaxed, though it stayed alert and watchful. He led it toward the containment area like someone walking a very large, very dangerous dog. The whole station watched as the most feared predator in the galaxy followed a human man peacefully through the corridors, trusting him completely. The transmission arrived at 400 station time, when most of the crew was asleep. Brent Wilson was pulling a double shift in communications when the signal hit their receivers. At first, he thought it was malfunction noise. The audio spectrum showed nothing but static and electromagnetic interference, but the signal repeated with mathematical precision, following patterns that suggested intelligence. He ran it through every translation protocol in the database. Nothing worked. The signal remained gibberish. He was about to file it as space junk interference when he noticed something odd. The electromagnetic frequencies matched void-claw bioelectric signatures almost exactly. He contacted Commander Tyrrell immediately. Within 30 minutes, the command center was full again. Xenolinguists, communications specialists, and anyone with relevant expertise gathered around the signal analysis stations. They played the transmission over and over, searching for meaning in the static. Ryan arrived with Ripley following close behind. The void claw had refused to let him out of its sight for more than a few minutes. It settled on the floor beside his chair, head resting on his feet. Several crew members still edged away nervously despite everything that had happened. He listened to the transmission once and sat up straighter. Play that again. They did. Ryan closed his eyes, focusing entirely on the sounds. The patterns felt familiar somehow. Not words exactly, but communication. The same way whale songs carried meaning through their structure rather than specific syllables. That is them, he said finally. The void claws are trying to contact us. They are using electromagnetic communication, which is why it sounds like static through our audio systems. A Taurian linguist shook his head. We have monitored their homeworld for decades. We never detected anything like language, just animal sounds and interference. Because you were listening with the wrong equipment, Ryan replied. He pulled up his analysis visor data, the same tools he used to understand Ripley. Look at the bioelectric patterns. They are not random. Each variation carries information. Their entire language exists in electromagnetic frequencies that most species experience as noise. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. If true, then every attempt at communication with void claws had failed because nobody was listening properly. They had been trying to talk and everyone just heard static. Commander Tyrrell made a decision. Route that signal through our electromagnetic scanners and see if we can translate the patterns into something our systems recognize. It took 3 hours of work, but they finally managed a rough translation. The message was simple and devastating. We seek our lost child. You have shown it kindness. We wish to speak with the humans who can hear us. Please respond. The command center erupted in chaos. Galactic Council representatives immediately started arguing about protocol violations and security concerns. The hegemony blockade commander contacted them within minutes, demanding they ignore the transmission and maintain radio silence. Any communication could be a trap. Ryan stood up and Ripley rose with him. He looked at Commander Tyrell directly. "We have to respond. They are asking for their child back. What kind of people would we be if we ignored that?" Security Chief Harland pointed out the obvious danger. "We have no proof this is genuine. It could be psychological warfare, a method to infiltrate our systems." "Then we verify it," Ryan said. He looked down at Ripley and made a decision. "We let them see their juvenile. If they are really the parents or pack members, Ripley will recognize them. Animals do not lie about that kind of thing." Patricia, the xenobiologist, agreed enthusiastically. "This could be the breakthrough we need. First contact with a species we have only ever fought. The scientific value alone justifies the risk." The debate continued for hours. Various officials weighed in remotely. Some demanded they destroy Ripley immediately and cut all communication. Others saw the opportunity Ryan described. The hegemony blockade commander threatened military action if they proceeded. Brent Wilson finally spoke up. "The whole galaxy watched a human pet a voidclaw. That footage changed how billions of people view this species. If we shut down communication now, we look like cowards. Worse, we prove that fear controls our decisions more than logic." Commander Tyrell made the call. They would establish communication and arrange a visual link. Ryan would be present with Ripley. If the juvenile showed recognition and trust, they would proceed. If not, they would terminate contact immediately. The next transmission was sent with careful electromagnetic modulation, using the same patterns they detected. A simple message: "We hear you, your child is safe, we wish to speak." The response came within minutes. A video link established through jury-rigged equipment that translated electromagnetic patterns into visual data. The screen flickered and resolved into an image that made everyone in the command center hold their breath. 3 adult voidclaws appeared, each one significantly larger than Ripley. Behind them, dozens more moved in what appeared to be some kind of structured environment. Not savage wilderness, but a civilization of sorts. Architecture designed for their unique senses. Technology that humans barely recognized. The lead voidclaw spoke, and the translation systems converted electromagnetic patterns into text that scrolled across screens. "We are the conclave of the shadowed path. We thank you for protecting our young one. We have tried to speak with your kinds for many cycles, but you only hear noise where we speak truth." Ryan stepped forward with Ripley beside him. The juvenile voidclaw made excited sounds, and its bioelectric field pulsed with patterns the translation system marked as joy and recognition. The adult voidclaws responded in kind. Commander Tyrell spoke carefully. "We were told your species destroyed 7 colonies, that you were hostile to all galactic life." The lead voidclaw's response came with something the translator marked as deep sorrow. "Those were not colonies. They were smuggler bases that stole our children. When we came to retrieve them, your kinds attacked. We defended ourselves. We never wished for war." The command center erupted again, but this time with different energy. If true, this changed everything. The 7 colony extinctions were not unprovoked attacks. They were rescue operations that went wrong because nobody could communicate. The voidclaw continued. "Your human can hear us when others cannot. He has shown our child more kindness than we expected from your kinds. We wish to open dialogue, to explain what your people misunderstood. Perhaps, through human intermediaries, we can find peace." Ryan looked at Ripley, then at the screen, then at Commander Tyrell. "We have to try. This could end decades of conflict." Commander Tyrell nodded slowly, then let us begin. News traveled fast in galactic space, but understanding traveled slower. 3 weeks after the first communication, Ryan found himself at the center of something much bigger than he had imagined. The footage of him petting Ripley had been viewed over 1 trillion times across dozens of worlds. What started as a crisis response had become a cultural phenomenon. Humans were suddenly in demand. The Galactic Council formally requested Earth send wildlife specialists, animal behaviorists, and xenobiologists to help reassess their classification of hostile species. The list was longer than Ryan expected. 47 different species were currently labeled as too dangerous for contact. Most had never received proper behavioral assessment. They were judged on isolated incidents and fear rather than actual study. Brent Wilson handled the incoming requests while Ryan worked with Ripley and the Voidclaw delegation. His office had become a coordination hub for what everyone was calling the Understanding Initiative. Earth had responded by recruiting specialists from wildlife reserves, zoos, marine facilities, and conservation programs. Hundreds of experts were preparing to spread across the galaxy. Patricia helped Ryan develop training protocols. They worked in the converted cargo bay that now served as a cultural exchange center. Ripley dozed in the corner while they recorded videos explaining stress signals, threat displays versus defensive posturing, and how to recognize communication attempts that did not match standard patterns. The hegemony blockade had been officially dissolved after 3 weeks of political pressure. The Voidclaw delegation provided evidence that their kind had been attempting peaceful contact for decades. Every incident classified as an attack had actually been parents trying to rescue stolen children from smuggling operations. The galaxy had built walls around victims while treating them as monsters. Commander Tyrell oversaw the transformation of Orbital Station 47 into something unprecedented. What was once just a trading hub now hosted diplomatic talks between species that had never spoken before. The plaza where Ryan first made contact had been renamed Unity Plaza, and it saw daily demonstrations of interspecies understanding. Ryan stood in that plaza now, showing a group of young Taurian students how to approach Ripley safely. The Voidclaw cooperated beautifully, patient with the children in ways that would have seemed impossible a month ago. Their parents watched nervously from a distance, but they watched. That was progress. One of the students asked why humans were not afraid like everyone else. Ryan knelt to their level and explained. Earth was full of creatures that could kill us easily. Big predators with teeth and claws, venomous animals, things that hunted in the dark. But humans learned something important. Fear makes everything more dangerous. Understanding creates safety. When you respect a creature and learn how it communicates, you can live alongside it peacefully. Another student pointed at Ripley. But that is a Voidclaw. They end civilizations. Ripley is a juvenile who is scared and confused, Ryan corrected gently. Not a monster, just a child taken from their family. Would you want people to be afraid of you forever because you cried when you were lost? The students considered this while Ripley rumbled contentedly under Ryan's continued scratching. The demonstration ended with several children brave enough to touch the Voidclaw's scales under careful supervision. Their parents looked shocked, but did not intervene. That evening, Commander Tyrell called Ryan to his office. The view through his windows showed ships from 20 different species docked at the station. Trade had increased significantly since the incident. Fear drove people away, but understanding brought them together. He showed him a report from Earth. The Understanding Initiative had received over 2 million applications in 3 weeks. Wildlife specialists, veterinarians, animal trainers, researchers. Every branch of Earth's conservation efforts wanted to help extend human expertise to the galactic level. We are changing the galaxy, Tyrell said quietly. One patient approach at a time. The Galactic Council wants to establish permanent human liaison positions for every species currently classified as hostile. They are restructuring first contact protocols based on your methods. Ryan felt the weight of that responsibility. What if I was just lucky? What if Ripley was unusually calm? What if this does not work with other species? Patricia entered the office then, carrying her datapad with analysis results. She had been studying the 47 species on the hostile list. Her findings suggested most of them showed behavioral patterns consistent with fear responses or communication breakdowns rather than genuine aggression. A few were legitimately dangerous, but even those might be approachable with proper understanding. The data supports your methods. Patricia said, Earth's environment forced humans to develop unusual skills in reading animal behavior across species boundaries. Most galactic civilizations evolved on worlds with fewer apex predators. They never learned the same lessons about coexistence. You are not lucky. You are trained. Brent Wilson joined them with more news. 3 species had reached out directly requesting human mediators. They had been isolated for decades because of behavioral misunderstandings that led to violent incidents. Now they wanted chances to explain themselves properly. One was a species called the Thornbacks, who communicated through displays that other species interpreted as threats. Another was the Deep Whispers, whose language existed in subsonic ranges that caused panic responses in most species. The third was the Hiveborn, whose collective consciousness scared people who did not understand it. All of them had spent years trying to tell anyone who would listen that they were not hostile. Nobody had listened until now. Ryan looked at the list of species waiting for human contact. Each one represented lives that had been isolated or hunted because of fear and misunderstanding. Each one was a chance to do better, to choose understanding over violence. He thought about Ripley, sleeping peacefully in the next room. The creature that was supposed to be a monster but turned out to be just a scared child. How many other supposed monsters were actually victims of the galaxy's fear? I will help train the teams going to these species, Ryan said finally. But we need to be careful. Not every situation will be like Ripley. Some of these creatures might actually be dangerous. We have to respect that. Commander Tyrell nodded. We are not asking anyone to be careless, just to try understanding before defaulting to fear. That seems reasonable. It did seem reasonable. Ryan just hoped the galaxy agreed. Outside the window, ships came and went. Each one carried people who had seen the footage of a human petting a void claw and decided that maybe, just maybe, there was a better way to approach the unknown. The change was spreading, one species at a time, one patient approach at a time, all because someone chose to extend their hand instead of raising a weapon. 6 months changed the galaxy more than 6 centuries of fear. Brent Wilson stood in Unity Plaza watching Ryan conduct another training session. The space had evolved significantly from that terrifying day when a void claw escaped containment. Now it hosted regular demonstrations where people from across the galaxy learned to understand rather than fear. 3 adult void claws had joined Ripley on the station. They served as cultural ambassadors, teaching willing students about their civilization. Children from a dozen species played in the plaza while their parents watched. The sight that would have triggered evacuation alarms months ago now felt routine. Ryan finished explaining threat assessment to a group of new human recruits bound for the Thornback homeworld next week. He emphasized reading environmental context, respecting boundaries, and recognizing that aggressive displays often masked fear. The students took notes seriously. They understood the responsibility they carried. Ripley dozed in a patch of artificial sunlight, completely at ease. The juvenile had grown noticeably larger in 6 months. Soon it would return home permanently, though it visited the station regularly with its family. The bond with Ryan remained strong, proving that understanding could bridge impossible divides. Commander Tyrell approached Brent with updated reports. The Understanding Initiative had deployed human specialists to 32 previously hostile species. 28 had resulted in successful contact and ongoing dialogue. 3 remained in assessment phase. Only 1 had proven genuinely incompatible with peaceful contact due to fundamental biological drives that could not be safely managed. That was a better success rate than anyone predicted. The Thornbacks turned out to communicate through elaborate spine displays that other species had interpreted as attack preparation. With human mediation, they established trade relations within weeks. The Deep Whispers now had translator technology that shifted their subsonic language into audible ranges, ending decades of isolation. The hive-born collective consciousness became a valued resource for complex problem-solving after humans explained their nature was collaboration, not domination. Each success built momentum. Species that had been enemies for generations found common ground through human intermediaries who treated everyone as potentially reasonable rather than inherently hostile. Brent watched a young Kelvin child approach Ripley nervously. Ryan guided them through proper introduction protocols. The child placed a tiny hand on Ripley's scales and gasped in delight at the warmth. Ripley rumbled contentedly, patient as always. The child's parents recorded everything, tears streaming down their faces at witnessing something they never thought possible. Patricia joined them with her datapad showing the latest research. She had been documenting behavioral patterns across species, building a comprehensive database of communication methods. Her work would become standard curriculum at xenobiology programs across the galaxy. "We have requests from 40 more species," she said, "not classified as hostile, just as poorly understood. They want human consultation on establishing better relationships with galactic society. Apparently, we have a reputation now." Security Chief Harland walked through the plaza without the tension he used to carry. He had been one of the biggest skeptics initially, but watching repeated successes had changed his perspective. Now he trained security teams on de-escalation techniques borrowed from Earth animal control. Force remained an option, but it moved down the list of responses instead of being the default. Ryan finished his training session and joined the group. Ripley followed him as always, massive head nudging his shoulder affectionately. He scratched behind its auditory ridge without thinking, the gesture now automatic. Commander Tyrell pulled up statistics on the command displays. Trade through Orbital Station 47 had increased 300%. Scientific collaboration between previously isolated species had produced innovations in technology and medicine. Military budgets were shifting toward understanding initiatives instead of defense platforms. Insurance rates for space travel had dropped significantly as hostile encounters decreased. The economic benefits alone justified the approach, but the cultural impact went deeper. A generation of children was growing up watching humans pet voidclaws and communicate with thornbacks. For them, the galaxy's supposed monsters were just neighbors who needed proper introductions. Ryan received a message on his datapad and smiled. The Voidclaw Conclave had officially invited him to their homeworld as an honored guest. They wanted to establish a permanent human cultural exchange program. Other species were making similar requests. Humanity had found its niche in galactic society not through military might or economic dominance, but through patience and willingness to understand. A reporter from the Galactic News Network arrived to interview Ryan about his experiences. This was the 15th such interview in 6 months. The reporter asked the same question everyone wanted to know. Why did he approach the Voidclaw when everyone else ran? Ryan gave the same answer he always gave, but he refined it slightly each time. Fear is a choice, not feeling fear, but how you respond to it. Every creature in this galaxy acts according to its nature and needs. When you respect that and try to understand it, fear becomes unnecessary. The real danger is not the creature itself, but our refusal to learn. The reporter asked what came next. Ryan looked at Ripley, then at the children playing in Unity Plaza, then at the ships docked outside carrying specialists to distant worlds. He thought about grizzly bears in Montana and mountain lions in the dark, about his parents teaching him that every creature deserves a chance to be understood. "We keep trying," he said simply. "There are thousands of species in this galaxy. Most of them probably just want the same things everyone wants. Safety, understanding, a chance to exist without being feared or hunted. Humans can help bridge those gaps because we learn to live alongside our predators instead of just running from them." The reporter thanked him and left to file the story. Brent Wilson remained behind, watching the plaza. He thought about that terrible day when alarms screamed and a Voidclaw rampaged through the station. How close they came to killing Ripley out of fear. How one person choosing compassion over panic had altered the course of galactic history. Ryan stood beside him with Ripley at his side. The station hummed with life around them. Ships arrived carrying more humans ready to help. more species requesting understanding instead of isolation, more children learning that monsters were just misunderstood neighbors. The emergency lockdown that day had sealed Orbital Station 47 away from a crisis. But what happened next opened the entire galaxy to possibilities nobody imagined, all because someone chose to pet the beast while others ran in fear. Sometimes the bravest thing was extending your hand to the unknown, and discovering it just needed someone to listen. Ripley rumbled contentedly as Ryan scratched behind its ears, and the galaxy continued changing around them, one patient approach at a time.